the guy that came up with the NASDAQ.
Well, let's not forget that Madoff was covering for others like Paulson. Okay, and he had guys. There were investors in Madoff's funds who were earning 200% and 300% when everyone else was getting hosed, because obviously a few billionaires knew. So either he took the fall for them, or basically the 1% of the 1% was going down. He was their toy boy. He was just a tool. Someone got that money, and take a look. It wasn't Madoff. That money went somewhere. It didn't just vanish into outer space. They say they lost the money. The money wasn't lost. Believe me, someone found it. It went somewhere. And the guys who got the money are giggling. Okay, and there's at least 4 arbitrageurs that you can name who got the money from that scam.
So
why aren't they giving it up? Only one woman. Yeah.
I mean, how much confidence is this going to destroy?
Well, they like confidence destruction because it creates more of what's called volatility in the markets, which increases the value of derivatives. So volatility destruction is part of the game. That's the problem. So, yeah, it's going to increase because what's happening, just like the oil market where they like it bouncing up and down, volatility, if you're in the derivative selling game, which is the derivatives like credit default swaps, it's like selling fire insurance. But it's like arsonists selling fire insurance. The banks that are selling it, like Goldman's, so they keep setting fires. They keep saying, "Oh, you need fire insurance." You know how much they're making? You know that the average Greek family, for example, and that's where it's worse. But you're getting it too. It's coming to LA, so don't worry. Just hang on there. You think you're that far from Athens? You aren't. Not financially. In Athens right now, in Greece,
I tell you what, Greg,
the average family is paying.
Stay there. We got to go to break. Tell us what austerity is going to do on the other side. Greg Palast, best-selling author, fraud investigator, will break down the austerity system and what it means to everybody. Stay with us. Prisonplanet.tv, 7 o'clock tonight. We're back live. Greg Palast is our guest, hopefully throughout the rest of the hour. I want to open the phones up in the next segment. The toll-free number to join us is 800-259-9231, 800-259-9231, on financial questions for fraud investigator, best-selling author, Greg Palast, former federal white-collar racketeering investigator, Greg Palast. Greg, going into break, I asked the question, how far will it go? I understand the command destruction, the volatility. The insiders like volatility because it's like a rigged casino. They know what's going to happen. But at a certain point, we're now getting past, mega minions, mega gophers like Madoff, up to super minions like Corzine, who then works for the Rockefellers, the Rothschilds, the Dutch royalty, the British royalty, the Saudi royalty, folks like that. Now we're getting up to are they just going to take everybody's money, and that's just the way it is, and I guess Homeland Security standing by?
Well, I thought that there was kind of a bottom to what these guys would do, but I just, and let me be commercial and remind you that my new book is Vultures Picnic, and if you go to vulturespicnic.org, you can get some of this info, including, by the way, the secret memo between Tim Geithner, Secretary of the Treasury, and Larry Summers, our economic czar, who should be called the typhoid Mary of economics. I want you to go and see that at vulturespicnic.org, and you'll see what's going on. These guys really have no bottom. When you look at that was a memo. And by the way, I got that memo verified by the head, the Director General of the World Trade Organization himself, because, my position with BBC, I can get to anyone in the world, basically. And they verified this stuff. They don't spit, these guys, without asking the banks. And there was Corzine's name. There is no financial international policy made in the United States. Geithner tells Summers, call Corzine. This is the guy that just took us down for $1 billion. And believe me, he ain't going to be wearing pinstripes. It ain't happening. So I thought that there was a bottom till I've seen the latest documents, the latest material. These guys are going for broke. We go broke and they clean up. They set the fire in Greece, and now they are buying up the Greek water systems, the Greek ports like Thessalonica, like these are famous, old names. You saw the film 300 or something, ancient stuff that they're buying up the beaches, right? So now they're moving on to Italy, they're moving on to Portugal, Spain. they're doing this thing all over the world, and of course picking up oil properties absolutely everywhere. You set the world on fire. You're the last guy standing with the cash. You clean up and pick up everything at the fire sale. The number one thing that's happening, these so-called austerity programs that are the result of this massive volatility and explosion in cost of derivatives, the austerity programs begin with privatizations, selling off of public properties. And these guys are cleaning up, and they're going to be the landlords of the planet. They'll have everything. We're just going to be living on their planet. That's it.
And you can see them setting up this total police state surveillance grid. It's standardized worldwide. And now, Greg, I guess they can't call people like myself a kook. They admit in the Time Magazine, Wall Street Journal, Financial Times of London, London Independent, London Telegraph, it's a banking dictatorship by Goldman Sachs, who goes in and takes over governments and takes decades to do it and makes money on the way up with derivatives and makes money on the way down, and thank God they're there running everything. It's a global corporate government. Wow. And I guess they just think it'll just go on forever, Greg.
Yeah. I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Did I lose you? Okay, sorry. I was losing out there.
Hey, that's all right. You're on Skype,
what was happening?
Sounds great, my friend. Go ahead.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I came back into you. Wait, is this? I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? I just want to make sure.
Yes, go ahead, Greg.
Lose you, Alex. All right. What's happened is that that in the cradle of democracy, Greece, when the president of Greece said, well, we should let the people vote on the bankers' proposal, the U.S. and international press went completely hog nuts wild. How dare you let people vote on the fate of their economy? And they got rid of the elected president, and they put in a guy who was a Goldman Sachs advisor, completely unelected. The same thing happened in Italy. I wasn't a fan of Berlusconi, but at least he was an elected president. Now you have, can you imagine, the bankers are literally picking presidents. It's a financial coup d'etat, and we're being told that this is a good idea because only the unelected have the guts to tell us that we have to cut that we have to cut government and cut what we are owed from our pensions.
It's a new type of authoritarianism. I want you to finish up with that, talk about austerity in Greece, then we'll go to calls straight ahead. Stay with us. Greg Palast is our guest. His new book, Vultures Picnic. All right, Alex Jones here on the road, back in Austin tomorrow, about to have a marathon drive back. Greg Palast, former in federal organized crime racketeering investigator, turned journalist with BBC, ABC News, best-selling author, joins us. Don't forget right now, they're trying to blame us for the guy that shot up the White House, who's a schizophrenic who thinks he's the Christ, reportedly, because he supposedly watched the Obama deception a year ago at the party. So we got to restrict that free speech. Boy, let me tell you, be sure and get that film out to everybody as well, because it doesn't really, it gets into Obama, but it shows how he's just a teleprompter reader for the big mega banks and derivatives kingpins bankrupting the planet. Now, I'm going to go to your calls, Frank, Kyle, Lennon, Craig, Tom, and others here in just a moment, but let me just go back to what Greg's saying and give him about 5 minutes of the floor to really flesh this out. Understand, I have heard Bloomberg Radio. I have heard you name it. CNBC, I say heard because I listen to them on XM. I don't watch much TV, but I listen to TV on radio. I have heard them all in the last few months demonize freedom, demonize people being able to vote anywhere in Europe, demonize the Germans who might not want to go along with bankrolling all of this. I've seen them demonized, and I've heard them with assurance say, don't worry, they'll do the right thing with the European bureaucracy. It's got expert bankers in there from Goldman Sachs. They know what to do, and they sell it like Europe's falling apart because none of them ever work, and they're lazy idiots, and they're all just sitting around drinking coffee all day or sopping up olive oil on their baguettes. These people, they're not doing anything. Yeah, look at Europe, folks. Look at the production. Look what they built. That's a lie, okay? That's a lie. So continuing, I've done the math, but they've admitted this. Iceland, 91% of the debt not owed by the people. They said no for over a year, finally got the documents. Turned out it was all basically the bank's own debt that they'd gotten their own operatives in government to sign on to. Same thing in Ireland, same thing in Greece. And it it's so over the top that the criminals that engineer the derivative fraud get the governments to sign on to it, and then Svengali it that, oh, this is because you've got too many weeks off a year, and because your Social Security's too big. I've always been against big government because then they hold people hostage for the benefits and steal most of it, but then people still back the stealing because they've been made dependent. That's why I've always been against it. But the point is, tens of trillions of taxpayer money backing up these derivatives in bailouts. You never hear that discussed. All you hear by the fake neocons is how this is great free market, and anybody that doesn't like the bailouts is a commie. No, the fascistic groups are up there using the public's wealth and fake privatization pushed by fake libertarians. It's not privatization to hand roads over for nothing to a foreign corporation like Centra so they can slap toll roads on it at 5 times what it's worth, gang raping you financially. Greg Palast explained to them what austerity means in Argentina, in all these formerly wealthy countries, moving over to Europe, what's coming, what they're going to do, because we've seen this handbook before. What is austerity before we go to these calls?
Okay, well, we saw it in Argentina. And by the way, I checked the inside documents I got from the IMF and the World Bank, working with the big banks. I checked it with Joe Stiglitz, who won the Nobel Prize in economics and was the chief economist of the World Bank, who's kind of come out of the cold. He verified this stuff was real. They had planned in that there was going to be that they were going to squeeze down the people, take away, as you say, their benefits, and kick up the price of food. And we ended up with riots in Argentina. The riots allowed for a repression. That's what they want. They want the riots so the tanks can roll. It's in the plan. And when I say that, I don't say that stuff lightly, Alex. I put this stuff at the top of the BBC Nightly News.
No,
they're very, very cautious
in the document.
Yeah, they write the riot into the document. Joe Stiglitz called it the IMF riot. And he said it was right there. Because they want that riot, so then they bring in the tanks, and then they impose this so-called austerity. What does austerity mean? It means that they cut all your government benefits. They take the money out of your pension funds. This is not about whether you think government pension funds are a good idea. This is about looting them. Whether it's good or bad, they get looted. Okay, let's keep in mind what this is about.
A lot of so-called conservatives are going to say, Greg, just briefly, oh, good, cut off the welfare queen. Folks, they took Gerald Salente's account that was his. They're going to rob everyone, and they're going to not send the welfare queen the money. They're going to riot and burn the cities, and then they're going to use that to take everybody's liberty. This is a blueprint. Listen to Greg Palast.
Yeah, so then what they did, they started selling off everything in sight. They had a state oil company, which was bought by the Spaniards, Repsol. Now, we did a calculation with some other economists, and if the Argentine government had never been forced to basically give away their massive oil fields and oil company, they would right now have no debt at all. But instead, they were a gun to their head. They gave up the oil company. They sold the Buenos Aires water system to Enron. Enron had a water unit, and of course, the first thing Enron did was jack up water prices 400%, and then there was no water. And then, of course, Enron evaporates with the water money, of course. That's the game that's being played. They ruined this. There were doctors. I was getting calls from Argentina. I knew some doctors and teachers who were hunting in the alleys and garbage cans looking for food until they said enough. And the people stood up and democratically elected a leader. We saw this in Ecuador, where they were ruined, and the Indians came out of the hills, burning the towns, starving. And in Ecuador, in Brazil, in Argentina, they said enough. They elected officials who just told these financial jackals, you may not operate here. Stick your so-called debts and get out of here. And they reversed the privatizations. They took back their own oil companies, kept the wealth for themselves, and now Brazil, Ecuador, Argentina, these are the economies that are growing at 8% a year. These economies are booming because they told the jackals to get the hell out. And I got to tell you, in Brazil, I've got a document from the European community, and endorsed by our Secretary of State, which is a plan to destroy the Brazilian economy through a trade war, because Brazil refuses to accept derivatives trades from J.P. Morgan. J.P. Morgan wants to operate